So I'll start this video off by listing off some of the benefits, the plus sides of the Genesis bow and some of its features, because it is an interesting bow that's pretty unique. It's sort of a hybrid of a compound bow and a recurve bow. It's got what looks like a wheel and a cam, so it looks like a compound bow, but it doesn't have a let off when you pull back like a compound does. It's a straight kind of pull. There's no let off really. It's all kind of just draw straight, almost more like a recurve. So it's an interesting innovation in archery technology. It's been out for a long while. It's also what is used in NASP, in the National Archery in the Schools program. So if you're familiar with that, this is the bow that's standard and uniform across every competition and division within that. So some of the cool parts of this bow is that the draw weight is adjustable. So it's very versatile and adaptable. Say you have a partner, a friend, or your spouse, or someone like that you shoot often with, wants to pick up the bow and give it a try, they very easily can. The only adjustment you'd need is by loosening or tightening these two bolts, and then you could drop the draw weight on the bow. It comes at, this is the original, there's two versions. This is the original, which comes 10 to 20 pounds of draw weight. The mini, I think, is closer to, I think it maxes out at 15 or so. So it's very kind of one size fits all in that sense. That's what makes it really good if you are going to be sharing a bow. Say you have multiple kids in your family, you want to be shooting and taking turns, right? If you can only really price in or afford one bow, they can easily share. It's good. It's a good bow to learn archery principles on if they're going to be competing, especially because you can kind of take it whichever direction you want. You can shoot it blank, no attachments, bare bow, traditional, whatever you want to call it, like I do. I don't have anything on here, just the arrow rest that came standard. But like you can see here, there's a hole for some attachments here, like plunger, and you could also throw on sights if you wanted to. So it's a really great way for beginners or children, anybody who wants to kind of ease into a one-size-fits-all kind of approach so that they can expand later on and start throwing on a little bit more complex pieces of equipment or techniques and kind of forms of archery. So I think that's great for that. The one downside that I think is pretty apparent is that it's sort of weird. It's a unique invention. It's still a bow. I think a lot of people disparage it. I shoot with it pretty regularly, and it's very, very easy to just pick up and start learning with. It's the first bow I ever shot, and I ended up buying one for classes that I was teaching. Bought two, and it shoots just as good as a standard kind of intro recurve bow. It's nothing too complicated. It's very easy to pick up, and like I said, you don't have to worry about draw weights, draw lengths, anything like that. Especially if you get one of these. These are the Genesis arrows by Easton that I think are also standard when it comes to NASP programs. These are all one arrow length. They come, I think, 30 inches, 31 inches. And if you're shooting NASP, that's the standard. There's no changing arrow lengths and things like that. It makes it really, really simple to just pick up and start shooting arrows with and learning archery. That's probably the biggest upside I have with the Genesis bow as a platform, and especially if you pick up these arrows. It just strips down all the technical details, all the kind of minutia. But like I said, going back to the first con I had with the bow, is that it's sort of its own category. So it's not real. It doesn't shoot like a compound bow, even though it looks like one. Like I said, there's no let off. You could tie a D loop here and start using a release aid like a compound bow. I've done that as well. My first archery class, I was using a release aid to draw the bow back and release instead of shooting off the fingers or with tabs. So it's very easy to do. Like I said, going back to the main point is that it's very adaptable. So you can tie a D loop on there and kind of shoot it as if it were a compound bow. The thing is, again, without that let off, it almost behaves more like a recurve bow, even though it looks like this. So the other thing is that there's no development once you hit a certain point using this bow. Want to say shoot traditionally, this just isn't a traditional bow. It doesn't look like one. It doesn't really behave like one. If you want to shoot Olympic recurve, this isn't going to really help you much once you learn the basics. If you want to get into hunting or compound shooting, again, it kind of behaves uniquely from those categories. So that's my biggest critique of this bow. Another critique, again, is that you pay a premium for that adaptability. Again, I think it's a great tool if you're going to share, but if you're just shooting for yourself, and you have a strong feeling, say you've taken some classes or some lessons before, you have a strong sense that you want to continue with archery and have a good idea of which direction you want to take it, say traditional or compound, I would put your money somewhere else. The other drawback is compared to a recurve bow of a similar price and budget, it's pretty heavy. This is all metal, and naturally compared to a wooden takedown recurve bow, it's significantly heavier. So if you say have some kind of impairment in your arm or shoulder that makes it hard to hold the things up for an extended period of time, that's going to make it difficult. If you're a younger child who maybe doesn't have as much strength, it's going to be pretty tough to hold. Again, they have the mini version, which is lighter and smaller compared to this. So that might be an option that might be a little bit better suited for a younger child. But in general, it's a bit hefty. The last criticism I have of the Genesis Bow series is that the draw cycle is kind of rough. It doesn't feel super smooth drawing off the one wheel and the cam. Again, it doesn't have that let off like a compound bow would. So when you're gonna go draw it, it feels like it's almost backing up a little bit, almost hesitating, and you kind of feel that sort of rough kind of pull. It's almost like a tug of war. It's pulling a little bit. I don't know if that's my particular unit. I don't know if that's just it hasn't broken in because I haven't shot it a ton or had it given it to people to shoot very much. But compared to my compound bow, which I'll show you in just a second, it's a much smoother draw on that. And again, that let off just really helps you kind of ease into your setup and your draw and your anchor point. So that's not meant to be a luxurious, high-performing bow. It is meant to be sort of like a one-size-fits-all kind of platform that you teach people on, that you kind of use to learn the principles and the basics, and that you eventually kind of grow out of. You don't have to. Again, it really depends on your goals and what you're doing, but that's how I kind of characterize this. It's great for younger archers and beginners. It's really good for, I'd say, families that might want to share a bow between a partner or a spouse or between their kids. It's really good for people who might be teaching lessons, right? Because you don't have to worry about draw length and stuff like that like you would with a recurve. And a compound bow you have to have set up for each individual archer. So that's a great advantage and great benefit of this thing. The drawbacks, like I said, is that it's expensive for what it is. You also kind of max out of your use out of the bow and are kind of locked into this platform. You would have to buy a whole new system for other types of archery. If you're shooting Olympic recurve, you have to buy a new bow, an ILF bow or something. If you want to hunt or learn compound, because it doesn't shoot like a compound bow, you then have to spend twice as much in addition to the $250 you already spent on a new compound bow, and then all the accessories and stuff like that. So the price definitely a little prohibitive compared to a recurve bow, especially. And last thing, it doesn't feel great to shoot. It's definitely tolerable, and it's a little nitpicky in my part, to be honest, but it doesn't draw super smooth. And I would say it's not really a great indicator or teacher of how a compound bow would shoot. If that's your goal, this doesn't really help you much in my mind. So this here's my compound bow. It is a Sanlita Dragon X8, and I will be making a review of this bow because I really love it. I think it's a great bow for people who do want to learn compound archery, so that's going to be coming soon. But just to illustrate the draw cycle, it's much easier and smoother. Right now it's set to about the same draw weight, about 20 pounds, so full disclosure. Just to demonstrate the difference in draw cycle, you pull, and that's the let off. It's that easy, and it's much smoother compared to the Genesis bow. So, big fan of this bow. Also a big fan of the Genesis bow, but it's just kind of a unique thing. The other thing I was going to mention was if you want to learn compound archery, this here, the peep sight, is not included in the Genesis bow. You'd have to add that in somehow. I don't even know if it's possible, to be honest. I've never heard of it and haven't done it myself, but this is a kind of a critical piece of equipment for shooting compound archery, for hunting. That's not going to be a feature on the Genesis bow. Again, if you're shooting recurve, you don't care about that. If you're shooting traditional, you really don't care about that. But if you're going to be doing compound, this is it's small. It seems like a small thing, quite literally, but it's sort of an essential piece of gear to know how to use and to set up as well. Kind of wrap this up by also talking about the Genesis arrows, because they're advertised as sort of standard with the Genesis bow package. So I'm gonna cut to that real quick. Okay, so again, these are the Genesis arrows. I don't know if they come with different color veins or not, but these are the official NASP tournament approved Genesis archery Easton aluminum arrows. I think they're pretty much identical to the Easton Jazz series. They're basically just aluminum budget arrows. The only difference is, again, they only come in one arrow length, and that's because of how NASP functions. All the equipment's standardized. There's no variance in that. It's just meant to be completely uniform and take that variable out of the competition, which is great. Again, it makes things really, really simple to learn when you're learning how to compete for the first time in archery, and also when you're just learning how to do archery itself. So big plus of the whole platform, including the arrows. The downside is, again, you don't get to learn some of the more, I think, critical elements when it comes to archery equipment, like determining your arrow spine or your proper arrow length, or building arrows if you want to get into that, which if you're a beginner, again, it's arguable whether that's important or not, but as a whole, you kind of, I would say the main essence of my, I guess, review of the Genesis bow is that you trade convenience. So I guess you're paying a premium for convenience, but what you're trading off is the ability to kind of really dive deep or learn more about archery equipment and different styles of archery. So that's the kind of trade-off you're making, I think, with the Genesis bow platform. Very, very good, high quality stuff. Again, this is Easton. They're a very reputable arrow maker. The Genesis bow itself is a very well built and very high quality product, I think. But what you're getting in convenience, you're kind of losing out on in kind of knowledge and sort of the ability to learn more about archery in a more deep sense, and also kind of specialize in different forms. So yeah, that's my opinion. I would say again, who's this bow for? I think families, instructors, camps, people who want that ability to change your draw weight and draw length without really doing anything, and people who just really want to get into it quickly. People who are set on a different style of archery, I think, should steer clear. People who want to do compound archery, either for competition, for recreation, or for hunting, I think should also honestly steer clear of the Genesis bow. And people learning traditional or Olympic recurve, I think, could benefit more so than compound archers. But because the Genesis bow shoots more similarly to a recurve bow, but again, it's sort of a different beast entirely. It's you're not going to be able to really learn how to maintain or tune a recurve bow by shooting a Genesis bow, if that makes sense. So that's all I have for now, and I hope you enjoyed this review. Stick around for more tips and reviews. Again, I have that compound bow, the Samlita Dragon X8 review coming out soon, so keep an eye out for that. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.